Okay, Appendix A to 49 CFR 172.101, the list of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. So 172.101, Appendix A 172.101. So here's Appendix A. So we've done the hazardous materials table. Now we're going to the appendix part of the 49 CFR 172.101. The DOT and the EPA want to know about spills of hazardous substances. These substances are named in Appendix A to 49 CFR 172.101. The list of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. Appendix A is divided into two tables. Table 1, the hazardous substances other than radionuclides. And Table 2, radionuclides. So they're divided according to whether they're radionuclides. Alright, see Figure 9.5 for a sample of the list from Table 1. Column 2 shows each product's reportable quantity, RQ for reportable quantity, in pounds and kilograms. A material meets the definition of an RQ, reportable quantity, if it is listed in the appendix and each package of the material being shipped meets or exceeds the quantity listed in the table for that material. RQ, reportable quantity, is not determined by using the gross weight of the entire shipment, only the weight per package. When these materials are being transported in a reportable quantity or greater in one package, the shipper displays the letters RQ in the shipping paper and package. The letters RQ may appear before or after the basic description. You or your employer must report any spill of these materials that occurs in a reportable quantity. The words inhalation hazard appear on the shipping paper or package. The rules require display of the poison inhalation hazard or poison gas placards as appropriate. These placards must be used in addition to other placards, which may be required by the product's hazard class. Always display the hazard class placard and the poison inhalation hazard placard, even for small amounts. Okay, Figure 9.5, a sample from Table 1, Appendix A, list of hazardous substances and reportable quantities. Okay, Appendix A, Table 1. Hazardous substances other than radionuclides. Hazardous substance, they list the name of the substance, and then the reportable quantity, RQ. The number outside the parentheses is in pounds. The numbers inside the parentheses are the kilograms. Like this is 100 pounds or 45.4 kilograms. So this symbol up here indicates that the name was added by PHMSA because 1, the name is a synonym for a specific hazardous substance, and 2, the name appears in the hazardous materials table as a proper shipping name. Alright, Appendix B to 49 CFR 172.101, list of marine pollutants. Appendix B is a listing of chemicals that are toxic to marine life. For highway transportation, this list is only used for chemicals in a bulk container. The marine pollutant marking is not required on a vehicle package that bears a label or placard specified in subparts E or F of Part 172. Any bulk packages of a marine pollutant must display the marine pollutant marking, white triangle with a fish, and an X through the fish. This marking, it is not a placard, must also be displayed on the outside of the vehicle. In addition, a notation must be made on the shipping papers near the description of the material, marine pollutant. All right, 9.3.4, the shipping paper. It's like a bill of lading, right? I think. The shipping paper shown in figure 9.6 describes a shipment. A shipping paper for hazardous materials must include page numbers if the shipping paper has more than one page. See up here, page 1 of 2? So this is the first page out of 2 pages. All right, page numbers if the shipping paper has more than one page. The first page must provide the total number of pages. For example, page 1 of 4. In this case, there are 2 pages, and this is the first of 2. A proper shipping description for each hazardous material. So this is what the shipping paper must include. A shipper certification signed by the shipper saying they prepared the shipment according to the regulations. Only the original shipping paper needs a certification. Copies or reprints do not. See up here, this is to certify that the above named materials are properly classified, described, packaged, marked, and labeled. So that's the shipper's certification over here. 9.3.5, the item description. When a shipping paper describes both hazardous and non-hazardous products, the hazardous materials must be listed in one of the following ways. Okay, so either it must be described first, the hazardous materials, printed in a contrasting color or printed in a contrasting color on the original or highlighted on a copy, identified by an X placed before the shipping name in a column captioned HM, hazardous material. The letters RQ, for required quantity, may be used instead of X if a reportable quantity is present in one package. Oh yeah, RQ is reportable quantity. The basic description of a hazardous material must include, in this order, the identification number, the proper shipping name, hazard class or division, and the packing group if needed. The packing group is displayed in Roman numerals and may be preceded by PG. Let's see, explanations for sample shipping paper items in figure 9.6. Number 4, you see the UN 1076 is the identification number from column 4. Let's see. Inhalation hazard, zone A. Poison inhalation hazard must be noted if determined by an entry in column 7 of the HMT. Hazardous materials table, HMT. The identification number, proper shipping name, and hazard class must not be abbreviated unless specifically authorized in the hazardous materials regulations. The shipping paper entry for a hazardous substance must also include the total quantity and unit of measure. So the shipping paper entry for a hazardous substance has to have the total quantity and unit measure, the number and type of each package, the letters RQ if a reportable quantity. If the letters RQ appear, the name of the hazardous substance also. For all materials with the letter G, generic, in column 1 of the hazardous materials table, the technical name of the hazardous material. Poison inhalation hazard must be noted if determined by an entry in column 7. Special provisions of the hazardous materials table, that's your HMT, when column 7 refers to a special provision for a hazardous material, the meaning and requirements of that special provision are explained in 49 CFR 172.102. Total quantity must appear before or after the basic description. The packaging type and the unit of measurement may be abbreviated. For example, 10 CTNS, containers, paint 3 UN 1263 PG2, packing group 2, 500 LBS, that's pounds. The shipper of hazardous waste must put, so they're showing here the things that may be abbreviated. The packaging type and the unit of measurement are abbreviated in here. The shipper of hazardous waste must put the word waste before the proper shipping name of the material on the shipping paper. Hazardous waste manifest. For example, waste acetone 3 UN 1090 PG2, packing group 2. So notice the material, and they put waste in front of it. A non-hazardous material may not be described by using a hazard class or an identification number. Shipping papers may also have to include an emergency response telephone number, depending on the type of hazardous material that is being shipped. The emergency response telephone number is the responsibility of the shipper. It can be used by emergency responders to obtain information about any hazardous materials involved in a spill or fire. You should check the regulations to determine when an emergency response telephone number must be included in the shipping papers. Shippers also must provide emergency response information to the motor carrier for each hazardous material being shipped. The emergency response information must be able to be used away from the motor vehicle and must provide information on how to safely handle incidents involving the material. It must include information on the shipping name of the hazardous materials, risks to health, fire, explosion, and initial methods of handling spills, fires, and leaks of the materials. Such information can be on the shipping paper or some other document that includes the basic description and technical name of the hazardous material. Or it may be in a guidance book, such as the Emergency Response Guidebook, ERG. Motor carriers may assist shippers by keeping an ERG, Emergency Response Guidebook, on each vehicle carrying hazardous materials. The driver must provide the emergency response information to any federal, state, or local authority responding to a hazardous materials incident or investigating one. 49 CFR 172.604 requires that the emergency response information on the shipping paper is prominent, readily identifiable, and clearly visible through methods such as highlighting or printing in a different color or larger, different font. The shipping paper must include an emergency response telephone number, including appropriate international area coding for telephone numbers outside of the United States. If the shipper is also the emergency response provider, the shipper must provide a contact name on the shipping paper. If the shipper utilizes an emergency response information provider, ERIP, Emergency Response Information Provider, the shipping paper must identify who is registered with the ERIP by name or contract number. The information must be immediately before, after, above, or below the emergency response telephone number. Section 172.604C requires persons preparing shipping papers for continued transportation to include the required information and, if taking on the responsibility of providing emergency response information themselves, to comply with all requirements of Section 172.604. 9.3.6 Shipper Certification. Hold on a second. Okay, when the shipper certification, 9.3.6. When the shipper packages hazardous materials, he or she certifies that the package has been prepared according to the rules. The signed shipper's certification appears on the original shipping paper. The only exceptions are when a shipper is a private carrier transporting their own product and when the package is provided by the carrier, for example, a cargo tank. Unless a package is clearly unsafe or does not comply with the HMR, you may accept the shipper certification concerning packaging. Some carriers have additional rules about transporting hazardous materials. Follow your employer's rules when accepting shipments. 9.3.7 Package markings and labels. Shippers print required markings directly on the package. An attached label or tag. An important package marking is the name of the hazardous materials. It is the same name as the one on the shipping paper. So they have to match. The package marking has to match the one on the shipping paper. The requirements for marking vary by package size and material being transported. When required, the shipper will put the following on the package: the name and address of shipper or consignee, the hazardous material shipping name and identification number, the labels required. So on the package you have name and address, you have hazardous materials name and identification number, and the labels that are required. It is a good idea to compare the shipping paper to the markings and labels. Always make sure that the shipper shows the correct basic description on the shipping paper and verifies that the proper labels are shown on the packages. If you are not familiar with the material, ask the shipper to contact your office. If rules require it, the shipper will put RQ, marine pollutant, biohazard, hot, or inhalation hazard on the package. Packages with liquid containers inside will also have package orientation markings with arrows that show the correct upright direction. The orientation arrows must always be pointing upward during transportation. The labels used always reflect the hazard class of the product. If a package needs more than one label, the labels must be close together near the proper shipping name. 9.3.8 Recognizing hazardous materials. Learn to recognize shipments of hazardous materials. To find out if the shipment includes hazardous materials, look at the shipping paper. Does it have an entry with a proper shipping name, hazard class, and identification number? Does it have a highlighted entry or one with an X or RQ in the hazardous materials column? Other clues suggesting hazardous materials. What business is the shipper in? Paint dealer? Chemical supply? Scientific supply house? Pest control or agricultural supplier? Explosives, munitions, or fireworks dealer? Are there tanks with diamond labels or placards on the premises? What type of package is being shipped? Cylinders and drums are often used for hazardous material shipments. Is a hazard class label, proper shipping name, or identification number on the package? Are there any handling precautions? So these are all clues suggesting hazardous materials. 9.3.9 Hazardous Waste Manifest. When transporting hazardous waste, you must sign by hand and carry a uniform hazardous waste manifest. The name and EPA registration number of the shippers, carriers, and destination must appear on the manifest. Shippers must prepare, date, and sign by hand the manifest. Treat the manifest as a shipping paper when transporting the waste. Only give the waste shipment to another registered carrier or disposal treatment facility. Each carrier transporting the shipment must sign by hand the manifest. After you deliver the shipment, keep your copy of the manifest. Each copy must have all needed signatures and dates, including those of the person to whom you delivered the waste. 9.3.10 Placarding. Attach the appropriate placards to the vehicle before you drive it. You are only allowed to move an improperly placarded vehicle during an emergency in order to protect life or property. Placards must appear on both sides and both ends of the vehicle. Each placard must be easily seen from the direction it faces. Placed so the words or numbers are level and read from left to right, at least 3 inches away from any other markings. Kept clear of, so this is where the placards are placed. Kept clear of attachments or devices such as ladders, doors, and tarpaulins. The placards must be kept clean and undamaged so that the color, format, and message are easily seen. Placards must be affixed to a background of contrasting color. In addition, for each placard, the use of "Drive Safely" and other slogans is prohibited. The front placard may be on the front of the tractor or the front of the trailer. To decide which placards to use, you need to know the hazard class of the materials, the amount of hazardous materials shipped, the total weight of all classes of hazardous materials in your vehicle. So you need the hazard class, amount, and total weight. 9.3.11 Placard Tables. There are 2 placard tables, Table 1 and Table 2. Table 1 materials must be placarded whenever any amount is transported. See Figure 9.7. Except for bulk packaging, The hazard classes in Table 2 need placards only if the total amount transported is 1,001 pounds or more, including the package. Add the amounts from all shipping papers for all the Table 2 products you have on board. See Figure 9.8. Alright, placard Table 1, any amount, Figure 9.7. If your vehicle contains any amount of 1.1 explosives, 1.2 explosives, 1.3 explosives, 2.3 poisonous toxic gases, 4.3 dangerous when wet, 5.2 organic peroxide, type B liquid or solid, temperature controlled, 6.1 inhalation hazard, zone A and B only, or 7 radioactive yellow 3 label only, then you placard it as 1.1 explosives as explosives 1.1, 1.2 explosives as explosives 1.2, 1.3 explosives as explosives 1.3, 2.3 poisonous toxic gases get placarded as poison gas, 4.3 dangerous when wet get placarded as dangerous when wet, 5.2 organic peroxide type B liquid or solid temperature controlled get placarded as organic peroxide. 6.1 inhalation hazard, zone A and B only, get placarded as poison inhalation hazard. Let's see, 6.1. Let's go back up here. Poison inhalation hazard. Okay, so we got that correct. So the 6.1 inhalation hazard, zone A and B only, get placarded as poison inhalation hazard. And if you have any amount of 7 radioactive yellow 3 label only, then that's placarded as radioactive. Okay, Table 2. These are ones that if you have 1,001 pounds or more, you need, apparently, from what I can tell, you need the placard. So the category of the material, hazard class or division number, and additional description. If you have 1.4 explosives, those 1,001 pounds or more need to be placarded as explosives 1.4. 1.5 explosives, if you have 1,001 pounds or more, explosives 1.5. 1.6 explosives as explosives 1.6. 2.1 flammable gases, if you have 1,001 pounds or more, are placarded as flammable gas. 2.2 non-flammable gases, placarded as non-flammable gas. 3 flammable liquids, placarded as flammable. Combustible liquid, placarded as combustible. There's a note up here. Flammable may be used in place of a combustible on a cargo tank or portable tank. 4.1 flammable solids is flammable solid. 4.2 spontaneously combustible as spontaneously combustible. 5.1 oxidizers, if you have 1,001 pounds or more, as oxidizer. 5.2 other than organic peroxide, type B liquid or solid, temperature controlled. If you have 1,001 pounds of those other category 5.2 stuff, then that's placarded as organic peroxide. So you have some cases where you always placard the 5.2 category, and then there are other cases where you placard it if you have 1,001 pounds or more. If you have 1,001 pounds or more of 6.1 other than inhalation hazard, zone A or B, then At 1,001 pounds or more, you placard it as poison. Notice again the overlap of categories. Inhalation hazard for any amount, and then other than inhalation hazard zone A or B for 1,001 pounds or more. So make sure you know the difference between those. 6.2 infectious substances. Placard name says here none. Corrosives, category 8, are placarded as corrosive, 1,001 pounds or more. 9 miscellaneous hazardous materials are placarded as class 9. Class 9 placard is not required for domestic transportation. Orm D, other regulated materials, domestic, is none. Okay, so under figure 9.7 we have you may use dangerous placards instead of separate placards for table 2, oh that's the other table, hazard class, when you have 2 or more categories of non-bulk table 2 hazard classes requiring different placards. See, you may use dangerous placards instead of separate for table 2 when you have 2 or more categories of non-bulk table 2 hazard classes requiring. You may use dangerous placards instead of separate placards for table 2 hazard class when you have not loaded 2,205 pounds aggregate gross weight or more of any table 2 hazard class material in any one place. You must use the specific placard for this material. You have not loaded, let's see, you may use the dangerous placards instead of separate placards for table 2 hazard class when you have not loaded 2,200, there's an and between these, so you need both of these together. So let's read them again. So you may use dangerous placards instead of separate placards for table 2 hazard class when you have both of these. When you have 2 or more categories of non-bulk table 2 hazard classes requiring different placards, and you have not loaded 2,205 pounds aggregate gross weight or more of any table 2 hazard class material at any one place. You must use the specific placard for this material. When you have a subsidiary class of poison, inhalation hazard, or poison gas, you must placard for the primary and subsidiary hazard, regardless of the amount. The dangerous placard is an option, not a requirement. You can always placard for the materials. If the words inhalation hazard are on the shipping paper or package, you must display poison gas or poison inhalation placards in addition to any other placards needed by the product hazard class. The 1,000 pound exception does not apply to these materials. You need not use explosives 1.5 or oxidizer placards if a vehicle contains Division 1.1 or 1.2 explosives and is placarded with explosives 1.1 or 1.2 placards. You need not use a Division 2.2 non-flammable gas placard on a vehicle displaying a Division 2.1 flammable gas, or for oxygen, a Division 2.2 oxygen placard. So you need not use a Division 2.2 non-flammable gas placard on a vehicle displaying a Division 2.1 flammable gas, or for oxygen, a Division 2.2 oxygen placard. Materials with a secondary hazard of dangerous when wet must display the dangerous when wet placard in addition to any other placards needed by the product's hazard class. The 1,000 pound exception to placarding does not apply to these materials. Placards used to identify the primary or subsidiary hazard class of a material must have the hazard class or division number displayed in the lower corner of the placard. Materials with a secondary hazard of poisonous by inhalation must display the poison inhalation hazard placard in addition to any other placard requirement. Permanently affixed subsidiary hazard placards without the hazard class number may be used as long as they stay within color specifications. Placards may be displayed for hazardous materials even if not required, so long as the placard identifies the hazard of the material being transported. A bulk packaging is a single container with a capacity of 119 gallons or more. A bulk package and a vehicle transporting a bulk package must be placarded, even if it only has the residue of a hazardous material. Certain bulk packages only have to be placarded on the two opposite sides or may display labels. All other bulk packages must be placarded on all four sides. Okay, so finishing subsections 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3 test your knowledge. We have the following questions. 1. Shipper's package in order to fill in the blank the material. 2. Drivers placard their vehicles to fill in the blank the risk. So in other words, number 1, shipper's package in order to the material. Number 2, drivers placard their vehicles to the risk. Alright, number 3, what 3 things do you need to know to decide which placards, if any, you need? Number 4, a hazardous materials identification number must appear on the fill in the blank and on the fill in the blank. The identification number must also appear on cargo tanks and other bulk packaging. Alright, so number 4, a hazardous materials identification number must appear on the and on the identification number must also appear on cargo tanks and other bulk packaging. Number 5, where must you keep shipping papers describing hazardous materials? These questions may be on your test. If you can't answer them all, reread subsections 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3, or rewatch my videos. Thank you for listening.